All right, so this is section P5, and this is all about factoring, okay? So there's multiple ways, okay, multiple techniques, I guess you could say, that you can factor. And factoring is probably something that you remember doing in school at some point in your life, right? Okay, so the first technique or the first way that we can factor is using the greatest common factor, okay? So you would have something like this, 10x cubed minus 4x squared, okay? And the only thing that you can do to this is take whatever is alike, whatever is in common between these two terms and factor it out, okay? So these have a 2 in common with 10 and 4, right? And if you look at your x's, you can take an x squared out, okay? And then your parentheses, you're going to put inside your parentheses whatever is left over from what you took out from each term. So I took out 2x squared from both terms. And so the first term, I'm left with 5x, okay? And then my second term, I'm left with just a 2, okay? And a way to check yourself to make sure you've done correctly is to multiply, distribute, I guess, back through. And you should get what your problem was, right? So if I multiply 2x squared times 5x, I would get 10x cubed. 2x squared times negative 2 gives me negative 4x squared. So it gives me back my original problem, okay? So that is greatest common factor. Another one is called grouping. All right, and the way that you're going to recognize these is you're going to say, oh, okay, look, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, you can recognize it by the powers that you're given. You're always going to be given 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, and we're going to literally group these. Okay, so we're going to say, all right, I'm going to group. Let me change my colors here. I'm going to group these two and these two. And with each of these, you're going to take the purple, you're going to take the green, and you're going to factor out the greatest common factor. Okay, that's what we just did. The greatest common factor of each of them, okay? So x cubed plus 5x squared has an x squared in common, right? So what's left in the parentheses is what's left after I take out x squared from both terms. So I'm left with an x plus 5, okay? You're going to bring down whatever sign is in the middle. Okay, just bring it down. And then you're going to do the same thing over here. You're going to take out your greatest common factor between 2x and 2x minus 10. So you're going to take out a 2, right? And then look what's left, x plus 5, all right? And you're distributing negative 2 back through. Okay, this is where some students slip up. You're distributing this back through. Remember, we brought this sign down, right? So I need to distribute negative 2 back through, right? So that's why we get a plus 5 right here, is because we need a negative 10 whenever we distribute back through. Here's our negative, right? So we have negative 2 times positive 5 gives us negative 10. Negative 2 times x gives us negative 2x, okay? So be careful there. All right. Some students want to stop right here, but do not stop here, okay? You have to, this is called grouping, right? So here's an x plus 5, and here's an x plus 5, okay? That's not a coincidence that happened, all right? When you group, if you group correctly, these will always be the same. Whatever you have left after you factor out will always be the same. So you're going to group these two together. and you're going to group these two together. So you have x plus 5. That's what was in common in our parentheses, right? And then you have x squared and negative 2 left. So you get x squared minus 2 as your other set of parentheses. Okay, so this is your answer. Okay, let's do another one. All right, again, this is grouping because we have 3, 2, 1, and 0, right? So I'm going to group these two and these two, and then I'm going to take out the greatest common factor of each of those groups. Okay, so here I have a 2 in common and I have an x squared in common. So what's left is x minus 3 inside my parentheses. Bring this guy down. And then you have 7x and 21. So that means that you have a 7 in common and you're left with x minus 3. Again, notice that these are the same, not a coincidence, right? That's supposed to happen. And I'm going to remind you again to not stop here. You still have to group them together, right? You need to group these two together, and then you need to combine these two together. All right, so you have x minus 3. Those are the parentheses in common. And then you're left with 2x squared minus 7. Okay, so that is your answer. Okay, and that is factoring using greatest common factor and grouping. All right. We also have a method probably that you're most familiar with, and that is factoring easy trinomials. Okay, I say easy, and you will figure out why in just a second. Okay, but I have a trinomial, right? So 3 terms, x squared, 13x, and 40. And I need to factor this out. All right. So what I'm going to do, so I know I'm going to have something that looks like this. And I'm going to use the factors of 40 that add to give me 13. Factors of 40 that add to give me 13. Okay, my first term is x squared. So I know I'm just going to have an x and an x. That's what actually makes it an easy trinomial. Okay, is that you don't have anything written, you don't have a coefficient here. So you know that these two terms, whenever you multiply them, just need to give you x squared. So you're going to have an x and an x. Now you're going to fill in these two blanks, right? And I know that I need to use the factors of 40 that add to give me 13. Okay, well, 8 and 5, right? And now you need to figure out your signs. Okay, this, get to my pen, this sign tells you whether or not your signs in your parentheses are the same or different. Whenever this is positive, like it is, that says same sign in parentheses. Okay, so if this were negative, we would know that our signs here and here would be different. So one would be positive and one would be negative, okay? But since it's a positive sign, I'm either going to have 2 positives or 2 negatives, okay? The same sign will be in the parentheses, and you say, okay, well, how do I know if it's positive or if it's negative? That's when you need to turn and look to this sign. This tells you what sign to put, okay? This is the sign, okay? So I looked here and I said, okay, that's positive. That means I have the same sign in the parentheses. What sign? A positive sign. So I know I'm going to have plus and plus, okay? So in order to check your work, okay, to check yourself a little bit, you can say, okay, that gives me 8x, you multiply, and that gives me 5x. Okay, both of these were positive because of this and this. So I'm adding these two terms together and I get 13x, which is exactly what I wanted, right? So I'll write it again down here. X plus 8 times x plus 5 is your final answer. Okay, so these are easy trinomials that we're working with. All right, let's look at this one. X squared minus 5x minus 14, okay? So we know it's going to look something like this. And we're going to have an x here and an x here. All right, and we need the factors of 14. The factors of 14 that add to give us -5. Okay, so the factors of 14 are 1 and 14 and 2 and 7. Okay, so you know we're going to have some variation of 2 and 7. Now you need to go look at your signs. This one is a negative. Change my color. This is negative. So it says that you're going to have different signs in your parentheses, right? We just went over that. And so if you have different signs in your parentheses, this one says, hey, I need the result to be negative. Okay. So we need when we add 7 and 2, we need our result to be negative. So that means that we need our bigger number, which is 7, to be negative, because whenever we multiply here, we'll get -7x plus 2x. And look what that gave us. -5x, which is exactly what we wanted. Okay, so our answer here is x minus 7, x plus 2. Okay, look at this one. This one, at first glance, you say, okay, well, how is this an easy trinomial? Because you said what made this easy was that there was no number right here. There was no coefficient. But look at our exponents, 3, 2, 1. And here we had 2, 1, 0. And that was when we did that. So here's what we can do. We can say, okay, well, the greatest common factor of this trinomial is 3x. I can take a 3x out of each of these terms. And when I do that, what I'm left with is x squared minus 10x plus 25. Okay, well, I can certainly now factor this trinomial. And now it's an easy trinomial because there's no coefficient, right? So I still need to keep my 3x outside because that's still a part of my problem. But now I can mess with the inside. So I have x squared minus 10x plus 25. So I have x and x. All right. I have a positive. So that means that I'm going to have the same sign. And this tells me that those signs are going to be negative. So now I'm going to have a negative and a negative. And I'm using the factors of 25 that add to give me 10x, negative 10x. So I know that I'm going to have 5 and 5 because I get negative 5x and I get, negative 5x. Those add to give you negative 10x, which is exactly what you needed, right? So the final answer is 3x times x minus 5, x minus 5. Okay. So the only difference in that one and the other ones was you had to take one more little step and say, okay, this is not an easy trinomial, but I can take out a 3x and create an easy trinomial for me. And so you just have to remember to keep your 3x with you, okay? So this page was greatest common factor, grouping easy trinomials.